Points Sustainability Commission meeting, recorded February 5th, 2026.
Looks like it's 5:30 and everybody's here from our commission.
Except, no.
Yeah, he's
Our liaison? Doug?
Doug called me and he's absent. Okay, so I guess to start off here, we'll just do a roll call here. So we've got Sam Lang, and we got Allison here, and Heather Phillips is here.
Phelps.
Sorry. I always do that, don't I? And then I'm here as well. Doug is absent tonight. So I just will, for the opening section of this meeting, this is a meeting of the Stevens Point Sustainability Commission. Persons who wish to address the Sustainability Commission on specific agenda items must register the request at this time. And persons who wish to address the Sustainability Commission on non-agenda items must register the request at its time. We do have one person in the audience. Could I just get your name?
Bill Fisher.
Okay. All right. So agenda item 1 is to approve the minutes from December 4th, 2025 Sustainability Commission meeting. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll motion.
Motion by Heather.
I'll second.
And a second by Allison. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now we'll move on for tonight's discussion presentation with the City of Middleton's Sustainability Committee members. I guess if the Middleton folks, if you want to just briefly introduce yourselves and just give us a short description of what you do on your Sustainability Committee.
Sure, I can start. I am Kelly Hilliard. I'm city staff, and I am the sustainability coordinator here in Middleton. This is my 7th year.
Okay, I'm Deb Weitzel, and I'm a member of the committee. I'm finishing up my 8th year, and I re-upped for 2 more years. So I think after a decade, I probably will be finished.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Hanairo, and I am no longer on the committee. I'm an alder person in Middleton, have been since 2022, but I did chair the Sustainability Committee for 2 years, and I helped to write some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Okay.
And then we have Laura, who's on Zoom from a different location.
Yes, my name is Laura Buckholtz, and I am this will be the end of my 4th year, so my 2nd term on the committee, and I am the vice chair of the committee.
Okay. Well, thank you folks for being willing to zoom in and have a discussion with us tonight. With that, I'll turn that over to you to give your presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for having us. It's always nice to make connections across the state. And, I think Wisconsin has a lot of history in grassroots movement for sustainability through the cities. So we're well positioned right now, I think, to share a lot of information, share our policies, how we do our work so that we can all help one another. We are housed in Dane County, just west of Madison. And so we collaborate really heavily with the Dane County folks, and we meet more than monthly as a group to talk about various policy issues and work-related sustainability coordinator things. So anyway, we're going to talk briefly about what the committee does and what sustainability, sort of the path Middleton has taken on sustainability, and then we really hope to have a discussion with folks there and allow plenty of time for back and forth and for questions. hopefully I can advance this. There. I'm not gonna read all of this, but I just wanted to give a very quick background that Middleton sustainability has a pretty long history. It predates me by, a couple decades. And the Sustainability Committee was formally constituted back in 2009 by the city, and it's currently a 10-member mayor-appointed committee full of residents. We always have one high school voting member, and we have an alder liaison who serves on the committee, and the rest are residents, that go through an application process, and our mayor selects committee members. And they serve, I think, 2 years per term, and they can reapply. In 2010, the Sustainability Committee helped organize a sustainable city plan. It was the city's first sustainability plan. They did receive some outside help from a consultant, but they really drove the process. And then between 2010 and 2020, the committee really did most of the work on sustainability in Middleton. They held events called Green and Clean, did a lot with recycling. They were responsible for establishing our city's favorite service, which is a drive-through recycling center. And they became very vocal in the community and supportive of sustainability policies, and then started engaging with climate mitigation. In 2016, the committee worked with some local organizations to launch a climate referendum to put on the ballot to ask questions to the citizenry whether or not the residents in Middleton wanted the city to focus on climate policy. And that yielded the results that 82% of voters who voted in that election said, yes, we want the city to pursue climate policy. So that gave the committee some political, social capital up front. And from that spun off our 2018 100% renewable energy resolution, which were our energy goals. Middleton was the second city after Madison to establish renewable energy goals for city energy use. There's also community energy goals, which I'll briefly show. And from there, things ramp up. You can see on the slide. One of the big things the committee advocated for, which I am very relieved and happy about, is a full-time sustainability coordinator. And that at first was controversial, but eventually made its way through because of, I think, all the work the committee had been doing and proving to the council at that time for the last 10 years. So they hired a full-time sustainability coordinator, and then that gave us more capacity to do solar projects, start our fleet EV transition, apply for grants and those kinds of things. We can get into that later more in the details, but these slides I'm sure can be shared with you as well. I won't read this either, but these are our energy goals, and the summary is that for the city goal, our goal is to be 100% renewable, covering all of our energy uses by 2040 for everything. That includes fossil fuels and electricity. The community goal, which is the same, is for 2050. And then between now and 2040, 2050, there's a whole lot of targets and benchmarks we need to meet. So it wasn't just it wasn't a goal that was made far off. They put some thought into what's achievable in the short term so that there were more bite-sized goals to look forward to and to attain. Right now, where we stand on electricity, I know for sure, is that the city is 50% of our electricity use comes from solar renewable energy. A lot of that is because our utility, MGE, is consistently increasing their fuel mix to include more solar. And then the rest of that comes from, we purchase solar from a large utility-owned solar array that's housed at our airport here in Middleton. We purchase 0.5 megawatt, and our school district purchases a full megawatt of energy from that array. And community-wide, 30% of all electricity used in Middleton community-wide comes from renewable energy. And so some of the projects that we're working on currently or else have started are things like solar on our golf course clubhouse, solar for our water utility pump houses, We're converting our street lights to LEDs. We have 800 lights we're putting in this year to draw down the energy use there, which is substantial in our city. We're developing potentially a new community civic campus, which would include a city hall, a library, and a senior center. So we have sustainability goals around those. We're continuing our EV fleet transition. And as far as policies and plans, which is what we'll talk about next, we're in our second year of our sustainable purchasing policy implementation, which is actually really fruitful, and we'll talk about that. And then one thing I haven't started yet is launching into a large planning issue or situation with our climate roadmap for the future. Excuse me, I have a sinus thing going on. Anyway, this is a good time to pass off someone else.
How about if I take it from here for a little bit, Kelly, and take us to Okay. So Kelly walked through all the timeline and the different policies and plans that we have. She did a really nice job. I want to go into a little bit of detail on a couple of those. So the resolution that you see on the left there, and it's very small, but again, we can share copies of this with you. That one had specific targets in it. And we, well, actually, I'll just say in 2020, I was appointed to the Sustainability Committee, and I chaired the committee. And after 1 year serving on the committee as chair, I was very frustrated that the council was not supporting what the Sustainability Committee wanted to do in terms of implementing and following through on that resolution. And remember, the resolution in 2018 was to follow up on a wildly successful over 80% of the vote referendum that said Middleton residents really wanted to see the city do more to combat climate change. And so at the end of 2021, I was frustrated because we were known, I think, throughout Dane County and possibly elsewhere in the state. Middleton is known as being a very sustainable community, and yet we couldn't get the council to purchase an electric vehicle. And I was frustrated, and so I decided in 21 that I was going to run for election to common council in 2022, because I figured if we are not able to change the decisions, we need to change the decision makers, and it worked. And so I have been able to do a lot of things and move the council in that direction in a way that I could not have done had I stayed, just a resident serving on a committee. So I plant that seed intentionally for all of you. While I was chair, we worked on the Sustainable City Plan. This was even before I ran for office. And the original draft of the plan was done by a consultant. It was an update to that 2009 plan. And that one, I think the draft dated back to like 2017. We had some turnover. This all predated me. And when I started chairing the committee and working with the committee, I realized that the draft plan was great. It had a lot of actions in it, a lot of metrics, a lot of measuring, like the gold standard for what you would want to do to document, like to set goals for the community and then document how well are we doing. Problem is, as you may know, in municipal government, we don't have staff and we don't have funding to hire more staff, and we didn't really want to pay a consultant to do the measurements and the documentation of how we were doing. And so it didn't seem like the best approach to continue and finish that draft. At the same time, Kelly was working really hard on the Green City chapter of our comprehensive plan. Every municipality is supposed to have a comprehensive plan. Ours hadn't been updated in something like 15 years, so this was the first update. And the committee decided to go in a different direction with our Sustainable City Plan, and that was to use the plans that we had already written. So we had a 2020 energy plan. We pulled some actions out of there. We had the comprehensive plan. We pulled a bunch of actions out of there, and we put those together in a fairly short, I think it's 20 pages, sustainable city plan, and we presented it as a menu of things that the committee prioritized, and the main priority was getting to that clean energy goal and reducing our carbon footprint. So that's what we did, because it made sense to do that because the staff really should be implementing the actions in the comprehensive plan. Our committees should be working towards that as well. And so it was a way to get those activities front and center, not to distract staff with a whole new set of activities or actions. And it also was a way to get council to buy into the sustainable city plan because they had already approved these actions as part of the comprehensive plan, right? So it was easier to sell this idea. We did encounter a little bit of resistance with the sustainable city plan because we didn't put any dollar amounts in it. And again, ideally we could and would have, but we did not have the bandwidth or the funding to hire somebody to figure out what do each of these things cost. And we presented the actions as sort of a menu with the idea that every year the Sustainability Committee would pull their work plan out of that list of actions. And so in theory, every year we'd be requesting funding for either the committee or council and the city staff to follow through on some of these actions. One of the actions in that plan was a rewrite of our sustainable purchasing policy. And that dated back, I think, also to 2017. And again, because of turnover, we didn't realize until late 2021 that this policy existed. So it had been, we paid for it, somebody wrote it, did some training on it, and the staff probably used it initially, but then it just went by the wayside. Another problem with it is that it was focused on things like cleaning products and paper and plastic, all important things, but there was nothing in there about the purchase of vehicles and other equipment. And that, you know, as Kelly mentioned, greening the fleet is one of the things we're really trying to do. And our staff, public works staff and others, were continuing to buy vehicles without considering the life cycle costs of a hybrid or electric model versus the internal combustion engine vehicles. So one of the actions in the Sustainable City Plan was to rewrite that policy, and we did that in 2023. That's when we brought it full circle back to, so we started with the plan, and then we wrote the policy, and then we brought it right back to the city's budget. Because the other thing that was missing is that connection between the city's budget and what is in all the city's plans. When I first became an alder, I started going to meetings of League of Wisconsin Municipalities and meeting people like from Stevens Point who served on councils. And I asked people, I was like, so does your budget reference your comprehensive plan, your strategic plan, all these other things? And they were like, oh yes, of course. It's supposed to be based on that. And I searched our budget for a reference to the comprehensive plan, and I found one, and that was it out of, you know, the dozens of, we have a dozen committees, 13, or not committees, departments, and we have, you know, hundreds of different projects in there, and only one referenced the comprehensive plan. So once we had that sustainable purchasing policy in place, I happen to be the chair of the finance committee, and so I asked the city administrator to work with the staff to phase in referencing in the budget requests how the actions and the projects proposed would further the goals of the city's plans and policies. For example, the Sustainable City Plan, our comprehensive plan, strategic plan, and the budget for 2024 was the first time this was suggested. And then in last year, working on the budget for 2026 was the first time we also had the benefit of the Sustainable Purchasing Policy Implementation Plan. That was the piece that the city administrator really wanted to have in place before he made it more of a requirement that the city departments use the policy, follow the policy, and document that in their budget requests. And the author of that implementation plan is standing by, waiting to speak, and I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa did a nice job of kind of giving you the history that we go from city plans to policy, to having an implementation plan, to then needing to roll out and to create tools for training. And so I kind of came on board right as Lisa was leaving. So the committee, that is, she was going to be an alder. And I think we met once, and she's like, okay, the policy was right in the process of getting approved by council. And then she said, we need this implementation plan. And it started similar, like the policy and the sustainable city plan, where, again, in 2017, they gave it a real shot in 2017. There existed a kind of consultant plan, and I looked at it too, and it was really good, but it was, again, very metric heavy, and tracking water and tracking all this stuff fell to like one person, and it was just too difficult for one person to pull this all this information together from all these different departments, because we're a very decentralized government. So one of the places where we started was, okay, let's pull back. We have this policy, and in the policy that was passed by council says develop a plan. That's key, because now, even though I am a volunteer committee member, I've been directed by our leaders to work on this. And there were some other people on the committee too that worked on it. And we held, along with Kelly, we held listening sessions where we talked to all the department heads, and we kind of grouped them together, 2 or 3, so we could have a nice discussion. So maybe EMS and fire or police were kind of all grouped together, maybe library and senior center, and we got their feedback. And so we had some, people who were around when the first policy went through, and then people who were new. And that was really very instrumental to collect all of that information and to try and develop that plan. And I'll take you through that here in a second, but essentially you definitely, when you make your implementation plan, you want to have the input from staff, good or bad, everything, like what are you worried about, what do you care about, what's going to be hard for you, what's an impossible lift, a heavy lift, things like that. And the more comfortable they get telling you these things, the more you can work that into the plan and the scope of the plan, and put together something that they can get behind, which is key to it actually getting implemented. But then after we went through that and we got all this, the plan put together and passed by council again, like, okay, we've approved it. Now the second one, the IP plan, we were like, oh man, we actually need a plan to roll this out. So it's really kind of an IP rollout. How do we do this? And so we developed a strategy to have in the first year training sessions, see how those went, focus, prioritize, and focus on your big ticket items, like fleet vehicle purchases, because that's going to be a heavy impact on climate, and it's a high ticket, expensive cost. We also decided to focus on RFPs, because if you're doing a contract for a construction bid or something like that, if you can get in there and have them use lower carbon concrete, again, that's a big lift. That's a big bang for your buck, and all you really need to do is get the language into the RFP. So we worked on that. And then we had some others that we would work on in terms of, okay, let's also make sure we're all on the same page. We all understand what sustainability is, because there's a lot of different definitions floating around out there. What is life cycle costing? This, for the first year, once we got this plan passed, that was put into the budget requests. They had to calculate the life cycle costs, especially for big ticket items, and kind of get on their radar for things like cleaning contracts. You can do that through an RFP to say, okay, we need to get the chemicals out of our buildings. So you really want to look for kind of the heavy lift instead of having them worry about, small things like paper and pencils, those are lower priorities. So you definitely want to have some priorities, and then you need to help them. So we worked on the training sessions and giving them some tools. I put together a little life cycle costing calculator in an Excel sheet so that they had something to start from. We had a previous member of the committee who put together a really quite impressive, it's called the Falca tool, which was your fleet asset kind of life cycle costing tool, and so that they could plug in information and calculate it out in depth, so you could actually even see emissions and things like that. So that was another kind of handoff that he left right when I was coming in, but we had the tool. And then running the training sessions. So Kelly, you want to go to the next slide where we could kind of tie together the development stages that I would say are most important. You've got to have those face-to-face meetings with staff that are going to have to implement this. Any plan that you do, implementation-wise, you need to involve the staff. It's pretty easy to pass policy, but it's harder to get people to actually adopt it and change the behavior. So meeting with them in these meetings, collecting that data, and then presenting the results to staff at like a staff meeting, and getting feedback again from them on what's missing, what do we need to add to it, what are we working on. I was able to polish it again, and then we took it to council to say, okay, here's what we found, here's what staff said, here's how we changed it, here's what we've done. And then they said, okay, now we need to send it through the other committees, which I think is another important step, because now everybody sees it. You get feedback from Parks and Rec, you get feedback from Public Works, and what are they concerned about, and what can we work on. And so after that feedback, took it back to council for adoption, and then continued on there once it's adopted to make the changes that needed to be made, implement it, and then just see how we're doing. In fact, right now I have open a survey. One of the things we're doing is every year sending out a survey to say, how comfortable do you feel with this policy? Do you feel comfortable that you're applying it? What % of the time do you consider environmental factors when you make your purchases, things like that. I also added in this year, if you could do one sustainable project, and what would it be if funding and bandwidth were no object? So we're getting feedback from staff, and I am happy to report that this is the second time this survey's gone out, and I would say we're up to almost 3 times the response rate from the first time it went out. So the word is getting out. People are trying. They are filling out a survey to tell us how they're doing. And of course, we still have challenges. You always will. But you can move things through, and you can do it with committee members as long as your council members are behind that. And so now I will pass it off to Deb Weissel, and she'll tell us about the importance of community connections and involvement.
All right, thank you, Laura. Just to let you know my background, I have a master's degree from UW-Stevens Point, so there's my connection with you guys, in natural resources for environmental education. So I taught at Middleton High School for 33 years, the environment classes. And so therefore, my piece of this puzzle centers on education efforts by our community, as well as other community members. So as Kelly said, the Sustainability Committee has had a high school student rep since inception. I retired in 2011, so 29. I think the first year I was able to get one of my students aboard. And now that student has, a student has full voting rights. That didn't happen immediately. that had to come later. But that keeps a connection between the school district and our committee, which I think is really important. So one of those student reps was Daphne Wu, and she was on the committee as a sophomore, so 3 years we had her. And while serving on the committee, she worked with the high school green team to write and promote a sustainability resolution for the district. And by the way, I'm talking about the Middleton Cross Plains area school district. It isn't just Middleton. We have the second community with Middleton. So the sustainability committee members encouraged Daphne because we knew the city's climate goals could not be attained without the school district's buy-in for renewable energy goals. And there were 10 elementary schools, there were 2 middle schools. We have the largest by square footage and population high school in the state of Wisconsin. So there's a lot of buildings that need electricity and other items to run. So we need them to buy in. So that resolution that was written by the students was passed by the Board of Education in 2021. And it was the second in the state to be passed, right after Madison, as Kelly said, with the city resolution. And it now drives the sustainability planning for the district. It calls for 100% renewable energy by 2035, but it also emphasizes environmental education, water conservation, waste reduction, and recycling. So it isn't just energy, it's wide-ranging. Phase 1, that's where we're at right now. It was largely paid for by IRA grants. One of the elementary schools received solar panels and geothermal heating and cooling, and this is the showcase school for net zero carbon achievement. 3 other schools were also selected for solar panels. The district bought an EV bus, which was one of the first in Dane County, and now we have lost that funding for phase 2 and more. So I found out recently that the board is now discussing having a referendum to assess public buy-in and financial support. Does the community want them to move forward with sustainability goals? And if so, are they willing to pay for it? Because you just can't get the federal buy-in at this point. So collaboration with diversity, I think, is a key element in achieving goals, as is the education component. The district sustainability committee is comprised of 2 students, 3 district staff, 4 community members, and 1 each from the Board of Education, the City of Middleton, the Village of Cross Plains, and also a utility, Madison Gas and Electric. Our education piece, besides Kelly giving informational talks to various groups, includes, we have a speaker series called Sustainable You, which we had in 2025. We had a series of 6 talks on sustainable topics at the public library. Currently, we are partnering with Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance, Bird City, Wisconsin, and the Friends of Pheasant Branch, Save Our Songbirds as well, to host a training on preventing bird collisions with windows. This aligns with the 2024 zoning code update that requires in new construction and major expansions of 10,000 feet squared or more to use bird-friendly design. Nearly 50% of the collisions are due to single-family homes, so educating the public is very important. And by the way, that requirement was second to Madison once again. But they went through all of litigation by the powers to be that didn't want that to happen and got through it all, and then we were able to very easily put ours into place. So, and the next slide will be our awards. I think awards give a needed pat on the back, but also encouragement for others to get on board. We have a Sustainable Middleton Award program. It was designed after Sustainable Eau Claire's program, Sustainable Eau Claire Awards program. And it's designed to highlight sustainable actions for individuals, businesses, and nonprofits within our city. Our school district won Sustainable Middleton Awards in 2 different years for sustainable actions at Pope Farm Elementary School in Cromrie, which you can see on the right, the Cromrie kids. They're known as Cromrie Critters. At least when I was teaching at the high school, that's what they were called, Cromrie Critters. But they have a green team at Cromrie, and they do amazing things for sustainable actions in their school. We use wood, by the way, from downed trees in the cities for our plaques, which is pretty cool too. So trying to be sustainable in all aspects. Going out further from the city, the DPI in Wisconsin has a new school district or classroom award system. It's called the Wisconsin Stewardship and Sustainability Award within Green and Healthy Schools Initiative. And what the state bought into in the past was the U.S. Green Ribbon Schools Award, which is no longer with the demise of the Department of Education. So I nominated the school district for this award, and we'll find out who wins this spring. Dane County also has Climate Champions Awards, and the school district and the city of Middleton have been honored by Dane County several times for our efforts. So in my mind, awards provide validation, and it gives good news. And of course, everybody likes good news. So that's that.
Thanks, Deb. So lastly, these are just some links to our plans if you want to take a look at them later offline. There's links here, and then these are our contacts, so please feel free, even after our discussion, to reach out to any of us with further questions. I'm sure everyone's happy to answer any of those questions. And that's it.
Okay. And I guess at this point then, first of all, thanks. That was a great presentation, and I just want to tell our commission members that you do have copies of this PowerPoint presentation. I emailed those out in the city email accounts. I guess at this point, I have a laundry list of questions, and I think you answered some of them in the presentation, but I guess what I'll do first is I'll start on our left side here and just go around our table if you want to ask some questions. We'll just start the question and answer part of this session.
So I guess my main question that came to mind was, how easy was it to work with Madison?
I can take that first. It's been really great with Madison. I know the sustainability coordinators there well because we have something in Dane County called the Sustainable Leadership Collaborative, which was started jointly by the county and the city of Madison to bring together elected officials and also city staff members on a regular basis to talk about sustainability topics. So that could be stormwater one month, fleet the next. And we do have quarterly meetings where we do have webinars on biofuels and different big topics in the news. But what's been more useful to me is that we meet at least bi-monthly with the sustainability leaders of all of the surrounding villages and cities. That includes Madison, and the county's always on those calls. And we do a round robin, like, what are you working on in Madison? And they're usually an hour long, and during those meetings you can find out exactly what policies are coming down in Madison, and we've gotten to know each other. We're all, it feels like a real community. So if I have a question, I can follow up with them, and they've even come to our city's staff department meetings just to watch committee members present to their staff how, things about the sustainable purchasing policy. So we really get in the weeds with one another. Like, how do you run your government? How do you get this policy through? What, like, I'm having trouble doing X. How did you handle that in your city? So that's been really fruitful. And I suggest, meeting with local communities is really helpful. Madison's been great. They've shared their policies. We have a really good relationship with their planning department. And then through the Sustainable Leadership Collaborative, we try to also connect fleet departments so that their mechanics can get with our mechanics to talk nuts and bolts, which I cannot do as a sustainability coordinator without a fleet background. So yeah, it's been really great.
And to add to the education piece, Daphne Wu was the student that wrote the resolution in Middleton, but she met with the student who wrote the resolution for Madison, for the Madison schools. And so that was very helpful. I met with him as well, and so we gained a lot of how to do, from the student from Madison. So I think it goes back and forth. We certainly can help each other out, but it's always good, I think, to get help from others that have gone through the process.
Thank you. I think that's good to hear because we have two cities on our border that we need to engage at some point with anything we're hoping to accomplish.
Sam?
I don't even know. I got so many.
Pick one.
Right? Okay. First, thank you. That was a great presentation, and it's left me with a lot of questions and some things I would like to follow up on. Something that we're doing right now is we're doing a zoning code rewrite and our comprehensive planning rewrite. And so I'm kind of curious, where did you guys find the opportunities to implement that in that process? Because we're trying to work with city staff to get some of that stuff updated. That we do have some standing guiding documents. We have like a path to a sustainable Stevens Point that outlines some of this kind of stuff. And it's like, how would I say this, when you're looking through your priorities and what's already out there, that low-hanging fruit. What did you guys find were the easy ones for y'all?
Well, our comprehensive plan we wrote in-house by city staff, and it was done during COVID. And so we were all at home with, it was a stressful situation, and yet it was a really good time to do some planning. Lots of Zoom calls. But because of that, if you look at our comprehensive plan, especially the Green City section, it's really heavy on COVID, pandemic language, and on social justice issues, because that was top of mind then. So that really shaped, I think, a lot of what's in our, at least the sustainability section, also the housing section. We were seeing, the housing security and public safety and all those things were so emotional at that time as well. So that really guided our comprehensive plan at that time, in addition to the normal things that you're required to put into your comprehensive plans. And then the zoning code rewrite, we, hired out for a consultant on that. And I'm in the planning department, but I'm not a planner, so I can't speak to the deep in the weeds about the zoning. But we did try to lift the things we wanted that were a little bit more, not controversial, but forward thinking from Madison. But Madison had already done it. So we were able to put it right into our zoning codes in that sense. I was at the time going through our LEED certification, LEED for cities. Middleton was the first certified LEED for cities city in the state. And I specifically applied to go through that process of getting certified just to help us frame our comp plan, at least the sustainability actions in the comp plan, because like anyone, I was like, okay, I know that transportation and housing and emissions, those are all big things, but it's a massive undertaking to do a comp plan. And so going through the LEED process really helped me frame our comp plan actions and goals, because LEED is the most vetted sort of sustainable certification framework in the world. So they have thought it through for decades and have, really refined it. So that was super helpful, because I was in a cohort with 20 other cities in the United States, like Cleveland, Newark, and then some that we were the smallest city, but we worked really closely. It was a very intensive 2-year process, and that really helped us frame the sustainability language that's in the comp plan.
And if I could just add to that for the zoning code, because I'm on the planning commission now, and my first year on planning commission, we were going through the very long draft zoning code that was rewritten by a consultant with a committee, a little steering committee of members, including somebody from the sustainability committee. Some of the things that we built into the code are, and again, following Madison's lead, we have an emphasis on density, of course, but then we put a height bonus for different districts, the mixed-use districts. We put a height bonus in there and made it only for buildings that were designed to be certified as net zero, or if they included some affordable housing units. And originally it was, those two things. And then I think there was something about stormwater, like exceeding our standards for stormwater. The Water Resources Management Commission said, we want them to do that anyway. Let's not put that in there as a bonus. So we took that out. And then we were going to allow conditional use permit as a third way. So net zero, affordable housing, or conditional use permit. And I advocated for taking that one out because I said, if we really want developers to go for the net zero or the affordable housing in order to get that extra floor or two on their buildings, we can't give them another option, and so we don't. So that's one way to incentivize even higher density and get maybe some net zero buildings out of it. Also, our landscaping requirements changed to make it, now we have 75% of the points or the plantings have to be native species. And that's great because we had a big flood here in 2018. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can to soak up that water when it rains. Problem with that though has been in implementation because, again, since I sit on the Plan Commission, I look over the proposed landscaping plans and I will say like, this is mostly, hostas. Hostas aren't native plants. So I'm going to add a contingency to our approval to say this, they need to go back, redo the landscaping plan, and that can be an administrative review and approval by staff. But if we have it in the code, they need to do it. The one thing that I think we need to do next is we changed the lot sizes, the requirements for lot sizes, and we did not change things like the width of our streets. And that is something that, again, because we had a big flood here, the amount of pavement we have is a concern, and we haven't adjusted the street widths to match the new depths of lots, if you will. So our street policy still has a specific distance that you have to have between two streets coming out, intersecting with an arterial or a collector street. Well, now we've shrunk the size of those lots. So really, we need to rethink that distance that we've established between one street and another. And that's up to the Public Works Department and committee. But yeah, there were opportunities in both the zoning code rewrite and then also, of course, the comprehensive plan to really build in some more sustainable actions.
I had a quick follow-up on that too.
okay, go ahead.
It sounded like the lead training was your favorite. Was there any other trainings that y'all have taken that you'd say stood out that you would highly recommend?
No, not that I can, not really. I do think we shared a lot. We gained a lot of ideas, again, from that Sustainable Leadership Collaborative and reading other comp plans from people around the area and nationally too. I was new in my job at that time. I was only in my job for about 6 months, and then it was like, write the Green City section of our comprehensive plan. And I was like, what's a comprehensive plan? So we were also kind of flying, it was new for all of us. to write that in-house. It was a big lift. But one thing I think is important to note is that while we were writing the comp plan, because I was also going through the lead process, I started to really internalize the idea that you need to align all of your plans so that you can build a case for doing these actions, getting them through council, and budgeting them. So I wanted to make sure that the comp plan was the overarching plan and that it had all the elements that I wanted to see, or that we as a city want to see happen with sustainability. And then when the Sustainable City Plan was written, that draws directly from the comp plan. Our purchasing policy comes from the sustainability, they're all nested. And so that makes it much easier when you go to council and say, I want $200,000 for X project. And the Common Council's like, what? That's crazy. We can't afford that. And you say, well, it's in the comp plan, the sustainability plan, the purchasing plan, the strategic plan, and you've vetted and approved all of those plans. So now you're telling me as staff, you don't want these things. It's really good leverage, and it builds your case for moving forward. And then also it gives buy-in for the Common Council. They're like, yeah, we want to do this, and I approve this, so I'm going to support this.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to follow up on that, since you were asking about training and stuff, how I kind of got connected with Kelly and the city was I was getting, during the pandemic, my master's degree in sustainable management from Oshkosh. And in that program, first thing you had to do was look at your city, but then you also had to look at your county. There were all these classes that were kind of set up, and so I contacted Kelly to learn about this stuff. And then the more that I learned about it, like I said, the deeper in you kind of get. I also got my LEED certification, which really helped with sustainable building guidelines. And when I analyzed the built environment, then it was like, oh wow, there are all these opportunities, especially in a city building, that you could do something. So one thing you might think about is looking for a graduate student who's going through that program that could maybe help you out, either as an intern or for a class project or something. So that would be kind of a good bang for your buck, if you will, to get a little bit of help there in doing all of that. And especially anything to do with construction, getting just certified at the base level, Green Associates will really teach you a lot about everything to do with buildings and landscaping and drainage and stuff like that.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Let's see, Heather.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming and for speaking with us. It is always exciting to hear what Middleton has been doing. I guess I'm just curious, so now that you have gone through the whole process of, having the implementation plan and support for the sustainable purchasing policy that hadn't been there in the past, how has it been going? What has the city been purchasing?
Well, that's a little tougher one to answer, because in our first year, we really focused on getting language in the documents. I can give you feedback from the budget requests from 2026. That was the first year we said that we put it in there, where they had to know life cycle cost analysis. And I was very happy to see that the police department was probably number one on that, probably because they had the most vehicle purchases, but it was really nice to see side by side, here's how much an ICE or internal combustion engine costs compared to a hybrid, compared to an electric. And they have some constraints because a squad car is tougher than a truck or something like that, because it has to, the police have to be trained on it, which is one of the questions that came up with. He goes, well, even if I may want to purchase all electric vehicles, but I have to be able to train my officers to use it. And I said, that's all part of, the life cycle cost. But they put that all together, and time again, they were choosing the, let's just say the least, the non-ICE option. It was either a hybrid, if that one fit their needs, or an electric. So that was really good to see. And then in terms of like our golf course, I saw some pretty good planning there. So as part of the budget requests, you have your 5-year kind of plan. And so there's a plan to redo like the golf cart shed, set it up, and then to replace all the golf carts that are gas powered with electric. I think just this year even, they replaced 2 mowers that were diesel or gas powered with electric automated self-mowing machines. So that was really good to see. The areas where we keep pushing that hasn't quite happened as you saw on the list yet is I'd really like to see those solar panels go up on the wells, our water wells. You would be shocked how much energy, it's like 1/3 of our energy that we're selling as a city comes from moving water around. So the solar panels that we want to put on the golf clubhouse, there's a renovation coming up with that in a couple years, and so I'm hoping and expecting to see that's when that will happen there. But what we need to work a little more on, I think, is our water utility, that I'm not seeing it quite as deep. But I was pleasantly surprised by really the thoroughness of the budget request forms, definitely with the police department and some of the other units that had to purchase big vehicles. And even if they chose an ICE vehicle, they still had to make their case that the bed was too short, or they had to make their case as to why they did it. And I think that has a whole awareness effect that, oh, okay, maybe we can change a few things here. This is why it's not fitting here. And then also it helps to identify areas that we need to work on.
Thank you.
If I could just really quick jump in, I haven't told Laura this yet, but I had a really interesting conversation with Public Works and Parks and Planning this week, actually, where we talked about changing our specification documents, our RFPs, our bid documents, and our quote documents to reflect the sustainable purchasing plan. And it was like a dream to me to be in a meeting with all the city, the brunt of the city staff, and having people say, yeah, we need to put budget towards sending out our specs to some consultants who can help us actually draft the language for low carbon concrete. We need solar specs. There's a whole list of things. So we started making a list of all these specs that we're going to have to probably hire someone to help us, because it's very technical engineering and legal language. But that would be a huge shift for the city. It's not something that you can easily tell that story to the public because it's so in the weeds and so wonky, but that is where you'll see major shifts in sustainability, is if all of our foundational city documents have all of those things baked in. Then that takes so much pressure off of me learning about, oh, I hear that there's a fleet barn going up, and going to talk to that department head and hope I can make a change there. Instead, these will be baked in language for all buildings that go up, for all fleet that's purchased, for all concrete and asphalt and road projects. So that it'll make it easier for the entire staff, but I was so glad that everyone seemed to really buy into this. Oh, we really need to take a lot of steps back and change foundationally how the city does its business, basically.
And I think that reiterates the importance of developing the plan with staff.
Yes.
That they buy in more because they helped shape it and form it. And, I remember going back and saying, going back and forth until they're like, I'm good, you're all right, go forward, which was nice because then I could present to council that, even if some of the people were tentative, they were willing to go forward with it. And that was positive.
Allison, do you have some questions?
Not really. I'm processing still.
Okay, that's fine. I've got a few here too. I guess, and you touched on internal and external communications. How did you do your vote? You mentioned back in 2018 you had the public vote on whether they wanted sustainability or wanted the city to work on that. How did that come up? How did you promote that? Or was that like on an April spring election cycle, or how did that work?
Yeah, I think it was spring. I think it was a
I
spring.
don't know if it was, only because I remember hearing that the Friends of Pheasant Branch were handing out things, I thought at the Good Neighbor Festival, which would have been
But it
artists.
was a referendum.
Well, one thing, sadly, that you should know is that we can't do referenda like that anymore. The legislature changed that. So now only advisory referenda are allowed if there's a capital request associated with them. And so it's not that we couldn't do it again, or Stevens Point couldn't do something like that, but you do have to make it more like, for example, we have the strategic action, climate action roadmap that is now in our budget for 2026. It had been cut from the executive budget that the mayor and the administration submitted, and then we were able to get that put back in. If we hadn't been successful, we could have gone to a referendum to say, hey, Middleton, we think it's important to do this study, develop a roadmap. It's going to cost $200,000, $300,000. Are you okay with it? And put that on the ballot. But even then, it's only advisory. It's not binding. So the council could say no.
Yeah, the advisory referendum was in the fall cycle, and it was in 2016. There's some press about it if you Google it. And it was launched by the committee, especially one committee member, Kermit Hovey, who's still on our committee now. And he worked, and the committee worked with other organizations, I think 350.org and Sierra Club, and then local organizations as well. And they did a lot of public engagement. They really hit the streets to promote this climate referendum so it didn't surprise people and for it to pass. In addition to the question of if people would support climate policy, at that time, the big meaty question was, would you support a climate or a dividend? What's the terminology for that?
Was it carbon trading?
Like a carbon dividend program. It didn't give any specifics. It wasn't about, and it actually wasn't about taxing the public, but it was complicated, and they needed to explain that to the residents. But then in addition to that, and that one passed as well with, I think it was near 70%, but then the other question about whether the city should pursue climate policy was 82%. So there were two questions.
Okay. I guess another related topic there is data centers. That's really big now, and the potential for huge increases in power demand. How does that affect, do you think, this affects what your city or your commission or committee will be working on in the future? Does that, support more solar or more pushing towards this renewable energy, small grids, for example, those kinds of issues?
Well, I think Lisa can address this as well because she's on Plan Commission, and we are just now diving into that. The Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition, which I believe Stevens Point is a member of, they now have a data center working group, and I think it met for the first time yesterday, and I couldn't attend the meeting, but that'll be useful because it'll be a statewide group of sustainability directors talking about data centers and how it's affecting them, and then using that information to reach out to state agencies and state government and develop the foundational documents that cities can use to help either fight a data center, or at least if a data center is welcomed or if one is moving in, regardless, then what does that data center, what kind of requirements does it need to meet by city policy? And so I know Madison recently, I think they passed a moratorium on data centers, and I mean, it's more complicated than that. It involves land use and planning requirements. And so the city of Middleton was looking to copy Madison, but ours is going to be a little bit more complicated with how we can do that through land use. So I don't know if you know any more about that. It's an item that's just now coming to Plan Commission.
Yep, I saw the Plan Commission agenda for Tuesday is now available, and we do have this initial discussion of whether or not we should follow Madison's lead once again. We have to note that we were the first LEED certified city
And the first sustainable purchasing plan.
We beat Madison on that. But as with regard to the data centers, yeah, we're looking into it because, Middleton is, we're kind of landlocked. We don't have a lot of room to grow. So it's not like we'll have a greenfield development that could house a data center. But we do have some space that, some built space that actually could. So this is a concern to us. And also Dane County, the president of the county board is organizing a data center task force. And I'm not sure, but I think one of the things Middleton's Plan Commission will consider on Tuesday is whether we want to lobby to get a seat on that task force, because it is a big concern. Everybody loves their AI and being able to, do useful things or, fun things. But it is distressing to me, especially as somebody who I spent my career working in the radioactive waste transportation space. So I am familiar with power plants and the power plants that were shutting down. It was, a gradual thing to see the older power plants shut down, and to know that these same power plants are being restarted years later, mainly to power data centers, is very frustrating, because we would not have restarted them to power our cities so that we can wean ourselves off of coal and gas. But we're doing it to power data centers, and that just doesn't strike me as a good thing. And of course, with Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio, all the Great Lakes states are going to be targeted because of the water resources that we have in this area.
Yeah, it seems like maybe from a public perspective, the public could perceive it as 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. We're doing the sustainability initiatives. We're reducing our energy footprint. We're reducing carbon. And then a huge power consumer comes along and kind of zeroes that out. Is that, I don't know if that's, it seems like that's kind of what's happening. But on the other hand, with all the benefits that come along with sustainability and how it can make your community such a nicer place to live, that it's important for the public to be focused on that as well. And hopefully the power users do their fair share, I guess, of, making sustainability part of their business model as well. One other question I wanted to ask you is, in terms of your committee, when it originally got started and how it's operating now, it sounds like it's built into city operations. So in other words, you have like a city employee that sort of works with the committee, and does the city hold the committee files and the paperwork, and is a place where you keep all your data? Our commission right now, whatever data we have probably sits on my laptop, I guess. But I'm just kind of wondering, was that an important thing when you got started right away, is to make sure you have a connection with city administration and their active support of your committee's work?
Yeah, well, it was formally constituted by the mayor back in 2009. And so the mayor does have control over who sits on the committees, and then a city staff person staffs the committee, and that's the same as all of our city committees. There's always a staff person who staffs those committees. Conceivably, anyone could staff the sustainability committee. It wouldn't necessarily have to be me, and sometimes people sit in. But what I do is I don't lead the meetings, I'm not the chair, but I take notes, I answer questions. If the committee says, Kelly, tell us more about how much energy is used at City Hall, then I'll say, okay, I'll do that this month and get back to you. So I'm there as a reference and to help them move things through the city process and advise that way. But the committee retains its own decision-making power. It could motion or recommend anything it wants to, and it votes as a body. And then I am taking notes on all that. We upload our notes to OnBase and central locations so that everyone in the public also can see those notes and see the agendas at any point on our city website. And then I refer items that the committee wants me to refer to other committees. I will then speak with the staff person who staffs the Ped Bike Transit Committee or Plan Commission and pass along the item for them to take up in their committees. So the city staff is instrumental in sort of managing the committee, but we don't have the city staff, although I'm very opinionated, so I surely do talk a lot in the committee meetings, but at any point, the committee could say, we don't agree with Kelly, we want Kelly to recommend to Common Council that the city does X, and I would move that forward, and I would also support the committee in their voted on decision. The Sustainability Committee is only advisory, so it doesn't have real teeth like the Plan Commission or the Zoning Board, but the Sustainability Committee has been probably the most engaged and the most outspoken committee in the city. And so the Common Council, because they support sustainability as well, tends to listen to the committee.
And a little bit of history on that. We didn't get a full-time coordinator first thing. We hired a part-time coordinator, and then she got stolen by Madison for a full-time position. And it was about that time that we decided, we needed a full-time position too, because there was so much work involved with grant writing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the history of going from a staff person to a part-time coordinator to a full-time coordinator.
Okay, so I'm just saying that our commission's going to have to do that same thing. Currently, we don't have an assigned staff person. It kind of bounces around a little bit. But essentially, for myself as the chair, I'm also functioning in all the limited staff functions that I'm able to do, because I'm not a city employee, so that's kind of limiting too as far as what I can do. And so being able to, what you folks have set up, you have a really nice website. It's very easy to find things. It's nice to see all that documentation posted so that the public as well can see what you're doing and gain understanding and also support, for that. So we're kind of operating under the radar right now. Nobody shows up at our meetings because nobody knows we exist. So, although Bill's here tonight. But anyway, it was. We're very happy that you were able to join us tonight. You've given us a lot of good ideas and a better understanding. We're going to have a planning meeting coming up for our April meeting, working with some local facilitators to put some more meat on the bones of what we're trying to do here, and then get some more additional support from the city as far as the staffing kind of logistics side of things help us be better organized and be able to move forward. Does any of the commission members here have any other further questions before I let these folks go tonight, or?
I'm sure we'll be in contact.
Yeah, so
I'm sure we'll have stuff
if you
come up
don't
that-
mind, we may shoot you some emails in the future here for further information, but we really are impressed with what you're doing there, and you have a lot of good information on your website. That's really nice. So thank you, and hopefully we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks again.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. And Bill, you've been sitting out there. I guess I should have asked you too if you had any questions, but
It was a good learning
yeah.
experience, honestly.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to do though, sort of a topic item number 2, the calendar updates and such. Just to mention there, so for March's meeting, we're going to meet with Recycling Connections, and also I'm going to try to line up Bucket Ruckus folks. I had talked to them earlier, and they're interested also in addressing the council. And that's for them to present on the downtown recycling program. And then Bucket Ruckus to talk about food waste in our garbage stream. And just this morning, I'm listening to NPR, or Wisconsin Public Radio, and they're talking about the DNR now, and they're talking about how they got to make an effort now to get food waste out of landfills, and possibilities of increasing tipping fees and things like that, which is sort of classic, that cities may now have to start thinking seriously about how do we reduce that, and if we don't, we may be paying higher tipping fees. But it turns out there's a lot of food waste going into the landfill. So we'll have that discussion for March 5th meeting. And perhaps that'll be something that we'll be addressing sooner rather than later in the future, depending on where that issue goes statewide. But then for the April 2nd meeting, we're going to have a brainstorming planning session. I talked to Katie Carmody, who is Department of Administration's Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy. If you haven't met her before, I've talked to her several times, at the beginning in 2025 when we first got together, and we went to that Stevens Point Sustainability Seminar. She's very familiar with the City of Stevens Point's planning documents and some of the old 2008 information on making the city more eco-friendly, I think at the time is what it was called. And so she's very keen on working with this commission to help us put together our documents, our roadmaps, if you will. And then Katie Levernesh, who is UW Extension, and both these folks live in town here, so they're very accessible. And Katie also wants to work with the commission on helping us build our planning document, roadmap, whatever we want to call it. That's what we'll do in April, is we're going to gather. Our meeting is just going to be, whiteboards and those two folks facilitating our discussion and helping us put some things together. Now, one of the things that Katie Levernesh suggested is that she's like, they got a really nice meeting space in the courthouse annex where we've got access to whiteboards and we can put documents up on monitors that everybody can see real easy, and we can sit around the table and be able to access and see the information easier. So this is, a good meeting room for the public meetings and our open meetings law compliance and all of that, but it's kind of hard to see stuff. I could watch the PowerPoint because I had the laptop right in front of me, but everybody else has got to turn their necks to try to look at monitors. And if we're going to do this brainstorming session and try to get some stuff on the board, we need to all be comfortable and be able to see stuff at the same time. So I'm going to talk to the city about whether or not we can meet our open meeting law requirements. Also try to have the meeting recorded as we usually do, and then still maybe meet over at the annex.
Would it be that upstairs area? I used to be on the library board, and they have a beautiful spot upstairs. It sounds like what you're describing.
This is what Katie described to me. She says they have a meeting that's set up really nice for collaborative meetings where you're trying to have a working meeting and talk through stuff and make edits and corrections and throw out ideas and get those laundry listed so that you come away with stuff that you completed, that you got done. So we've met for an entire year now. We've collected a lot of information. And what I would ask all the commission members to think about and even write down some stuff or send me tweets late at night or whatever is your ideas and thoughts about our planning documents, what should be in the outline. I've been looking at this stuff myself, and I've been looking at some of the overlap and things. And some of the stuff that was being said tonight by the City of Middleton folks, I'm thinking, yeah, Stevens Point does that. Stevens Point's thinking about that. And talking to all these different departments and such, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're already doing. So part of it is we need to summarize what are the things that we're doing that fall under that whole sustainability umbrella. What are things that we think we need to do that we're not doing? And then what is our timeline? This was the other thing Katie Levernash asked. She's like, okay, so by the end of 2026, you've got 2-year terms that are expiring. You're going to want to go before your council and make a presentation and saying, okay, 2 years of work, here's what we're at. And then here's what we think we need to do to go forward. So that's also kind of part of the discussion if we want to start thinking about, where do we go from here? Or was this just a 2-year one-off and put a bow on it and walk away? Well, we probably don't want to do that. I mean, I don't think, what I see other communities doing is this is something you start and then this is an ongoing process, and that's how you start to show results. And so, yes, we can look at the things we're doing and keep doing more of that and make improvements to that. And then there's some things that we definitely could add on to it. Sounds like being LEED certified is a really good thing to do. And then that whole business about get your sustainability things into your contracts and your request for proposals. I mean, that's huge, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's that topic. And then, again, the next meeting is March 5th. And unless anybody's got any more comments or questions, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. So,
Second.
okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com,